Okay, let's check in with the dungeon delving crew, shall we? Because, like, I don't know if maybe this is going to be one of the sedate episodes again, one of the ones where they sort of chill the fuck out for a second and just do like standard, decent, high quality TV grade animation without, any need to blow my particular mind and turn me feral. Maybe it'd be nice. It's nice to have a relaxing viewing of a dungeon meshy episode for once, wouldn't it? But also, the story does seem to be heading towards its first big climax at this point, because like we so far in the season we've gone through the whole process of like the party has lost two of its members. They need to go find Fallon. They find Senshi, right? Like they established this new group of people who are traveling through the dungeons together, and there's been the whole process of like Marcel and Senshi sort of coming to see eye to eye on matters of like expertise in the dungeon. Senshi having the limits of his knowledge tested with the Kelpie. Marcel has had some opportunities both to be like the comedy character who's sort of out of her depth and sort of a point of view straight man to a lot of things, along with Chilchuck, and she has had some chances to like show off how fucking badass she is. Chilchuck has had a chance to like really show off his competences. So, like, the party has been shaken together, and as per the ending of the last episode, like, there's this overarching metaphor of the way in which food can bring people together. It can forge bonds between people, that there's something very primal about sharing food that just forges bonds, that changes your perspective, that makes you see the world in a different way. And we've seen, like, in the interaction with Hot Dwarf Girl, name escapes me. Can picture her very clearly in my mind, though. Oh boy, very clearly. Name escapes me. But in the interaction with the former party member, like, okay, Marcel has changed. The party has kind of changed. There's something new about it. So, like, they've been shaken together. They have this dynamic now. Like, they are a well-functioning party. They're capable of overcoming tremendous challenges through cooperation. That's what they did when they beat the Undine. And now the story is sort of moving towards its first major conclusion, which is, one assumes, finding the Red Dragon and making an attempt to save Fallon. And boy, I sure hope that there aren't any devastating twists on the horizon or anything that, like, boy, that would be terrible. We'd have to have so much more story. I really hope they just find the dragon, kill it, rescue Fallon, and then the story is over. No problem whatsoever. I hope nothing unexpected happens. Oh dear. Anyway, welcome to a watch along. The way that these work is there's a timer in the top left corner of the screen, which actually I need to switch it over. There we go. Because we're on Netflix, which will tell you where I am in the episode. It's a Netflix timer, so it's counting down rather than counting up. And you will use that to stay in tune with me or in step with me as I go through the episode, because I'm not going to show you the episode because I don't want to get copyright claimed or get into any of that trouble. I'm only going to show you freeze frames like this, along with an occasional little pause to sort of go through and go, oh, cool animation of the thing, of like, that's like, I'll poke about a little bit, and you'll use the timer to stay in time with where I am. And every once in a while, I will give you a countdown. I'll say 3, 2, 1, pause. That's when you pause the episode, because I have something that I want to talk about. Like how it's cool that Senshi looks really big here with the trees in the intro. Wow, that's a cool frame. And then when I'm done with the talking about the thing that I want to do, I'll say 3, 2, 1, go, or unpause, or something along those lines, and then we keep going. And that's how we stay in time with one another, and how you keep track of where I am and what I'm looking at in any given episode. Does that more or less work for you? Does that more or less make sense for you? I mean, if it doesn't, too bad. This is my relaxation lazy channel, and I don't want to put any more effort into it than this. So this is what you're stuck with. But let's set the timer to 0 and see what kinds of animation madness Studio Trigger are going to throw at me today. 3, 2, 1, go. Balloon Netflix. And Little Mushroom Man. It's still such an adorable animation. I want that as a loading icon. This show had better get a fucking second season. Swear to God. And a third. Or a core, or whatever. Because, boy, need it. I have not yet attempted to learn the song phonetically. I sometimes do that with anime openings, where I try to learn the Japanese phonetically, which I'm sure like terrible pronunciation, but I've yet to do it with this one. It's not really a banger. Like, it's not really. It's more of a vibe song, right? It's more like it's more a vibe song than a sing along banger. I feel. Although, man, Mother's Basement used to have these What's in an OP videos, and I kind of have been tempted to try that with anime openings, but that's so fucking dangerous. On YouTube, I mean. Ooh. Oh. Rogue problems. Oh, shaky sword. Ooh. Oh no! Sword baby! Ooh. Oh. Ooh. The the rendering on some of the, like, on the tentacle in the wall is like... The one-time nerd knowledge would be useful. Chilchuck, you good boy. Ooh, that frog animation, though. Oh, fuck me, that's good. Okay. I'm just gonna let this resolve. Oh, no. Okay, 3, 2, 1, pause. Ooh, the frog's animation especially here. I quite like... Hang on. Yeah. Like this. You see, it does the lid, like the false lid over the eye. And then after that, it changes expression in a way that I thought was really well done. There, like that, right? That's a very human expression ultimately, right? Like that's like the narrowing of the eyes and like the like the eyebrows going down over the thing. Like that's a very human expression. So you get this sense of like the frog is looking with menace and with malice, but without, crucially, without really anthropomorphizing it, right? Like without really it's using like the anatomical features of the creature without really anthropomorphizing it or making it seem like it's being too human. It is like, okay, it just does kind of look like that's a motion a frog might make, but it has that extra vibe, right? Of and yoink, of like a frog's natural motion. And then like the little eating bits it does with poor Chilchuck here, that like the snap forward, pull back, snap forward, that felt so verisimilitudinous. Like that felt really, really well observed of like how frogs, like how they swallow their prey. That was just, I just wanted to call that out because that was real good. Just good animation, man. Okay, let's see if I can get back to more or less where I was. That would be, yeah, 5 minutes 36 or minus 2041. That'll do. 3, 2, 1, on pause. And gross, but smart. Specific connection being drawn there between crafting and cooking. Oh no, is that gonna work on her? I mean, they weren't wrong. She does look cute. Oh, the visuals. Ooh. Oh, there's clothes hung out to dry. Oh, that's cool. Oh, hello. Painting hopping? Oh, she does not like that. Namari. Right, of course that's her name. Oh, we're going up top side. I swear to God, I know the voice actor in English for the scholar. World building. Uh-oh. Politics. My. Ambitious, aren't we? Three, two, one. Pause. Interesting. So there's not a lot to say here in terms of like the animation, obviously, but the world building is like, this is something that like, this is a matter of structural choices, right? Because in the manga, because like that's like weekly publishing or monthly publishing, and that's like an ongoing series kind of thing. It has different sort of structural effects and constraints on how a story works, right? Where you can kind of get, you like, oftentimes you can start a story, set up the barest hints of a premise, and just kind of go, hey, let's just have fun adventures in the thing, like, and without, like, you don't really need to do a ton of world building. For a series like this, for like a TV series, sometimes like you can make that structural change of, we're going to introduce a lot more world building early on to get it out of the fucking way, so that in later episodes we don't have an episode like this where like we spend quite a lot of time just sitting with a character talking about politics and things that sort of like are not necessarily relevant to the main adventure of the characters. It's a risk to take to have a scene like this where it's just characters sitting down and talking and like dumping exposition on your ass, right? What I think Dungeon Meshi has judged very cleverly here is that, okay, let's take that exposition, let's take that explanation of what the dungeon is and how it works, and put it near the end of the first season. It's like put it in episode 10, like put it well down the line, and then spend the first series of episodes building up the intrigue and mystery of the dungeon, right? Like spend a bunch of time in the dungeon with the characters, doing adventures and stuff, hinting here and there at like, oh, the deeper mechanisms of the things that Mad Mage, like sort of leave all that in the background, let the characters have adventures, get the audience invested, and get us curious, right? Because I certainly have been, like, over the course of the show, it's like, okay, this dungeon Mad Mage things, it was never at the front of my mind, because at the front of my mind is I want these characters to have cool adventures and fight monsters and eat them. But it's like, oh, okay, like that would be interesting. And now at this point in episode 10, where our main group of characters have almost reached the Red Dragon, right? Like the story is setting up like the Red Dragon isn't far away. It's going to be soon now. Setting up, building up that tension. That's when we jump into like a long lore dump exposition scene to let that tension build up, but also to start to plant the idea that, hey, maybe there's something deeper going on here. Like maybe the dungeon is about more than just exploring the dungeon, and like hinting at, oh, there's like real world politics that exist and like interact with like the reason why the adventurers are being subsidized to go down there in the first place is because, right, like these things sort of building up in the background along with a narrative of, hey, tensions are building up, right? Like the status quo that we have enjoyed in the dungeon so far, which is like adventurers go down, sometimes they die, they get revived, they go back out, like where you have this sense of like there is a normalcy to it. Now we're introducing a threat to that normalcy, right? Like now we're introducing the idea that, oh, the elves are making demands, and maybe it's like in sometime in the near future there could be some kind of massive change coming to who owns the dungeon and whether it's even possible to adventure there, which raises the question of like, oh shit, if the dungeon changed hands over to the elves, would the party still be able to go down and find Fallon? Or would they be kicked out by the elves taking sudden possession over the dungeon itself and like sort of like monopolizing exploration of it? Like that's an interesting extra layer of tension to introduce at this point, to sort of go, oh, okay, like they might not get another shot at this, right? The party might not have another chance at this, so they better make this one count. Like that, structurally speaking, it's brave. Like it is brave at this point in this episode to have a long exposition scene, and sort of trusting that the narrative implications of this exposition will do something positive for the main plot. But I think that works well. It also introduces us to the idea that the lord of the land here is a fairly weak-minded and easily influenceable guy. Like he seems fairly pliable to any amount of pressure from our scholarly mage man here, who now seems to wield an undue amount of influence over how the how the infrastructure of that dungeon is handled on a political level, which again makes him more interesting and makes it interesting. Like the Mari is going to be our is working for that guy who seems to wield such undue amount of authority over how the dungeon is treated by the political entities that sort of run the world, right? All interesting stuff. Now I have looked at this frame for so long, I can't help but notice that one ear looks too different from the other one. And it's like one of the ears is clearly a lot bigger than the other one. Doesn't matter. It's just, okay. Anyway, 3, 2, 1, unpause. His memory of them. business. Ooh. Checking up on Fallon, are we? Oh. Oh dear. That looks burned. Yeah, just 3. He feels a little in. Yeah. 3, 2, 1. Pause. Ooh, cool frame to stop at. I I like that reaction from Chilchuck, right? Like that. That's like, well, I'm not fighting, and then he feels that need to defend himself from it, which is like an indication that he wishes that he could, right? Like he feels bad that he's not able to fight. He feels bad that he's not able to help on that level, and it bothers him. So he's like going, I'm just a thief. I'm just supposed to get you. I'm just a burglar, right? Like I'm just the locksmith guy." Ugh. But it indicates that that's like a sore spot for him, that he can't help in combat, right? Um, which I think perhaps also sort of reflects in the way that he took the initiative to like skin the frog, um, use the skin as gloves to try and like protect Senshi's axe and protect the party, right? Like he tried to make himself useful in a combat scenario without fighting, which is like, good characterization. Anyway, cool frame to pause at, this one. And of course, Dear Samurai in Love. 3, 2, 1, go. Oh, good transition. Hmm. Planning. See? Yeah. Oh, Senshi. 3. Oh, I shouldn't count down. Sorry. I keep forgetting I shouldn't do countdowns. But that felt so much like a moment where it was going to be like 3, 2, 1. Oh, something like a big explosion, and all of a sudden they have to run. But no, they get the planning sequence. I like these. Like, it's like a heist sequence, right? Like, we're setting up the plan. It's definitely going to go wrong. Oh, Chilchuck. Mm. I don't like frog meat, but that with chicken, oh. No kidding. Oh. You're so cringe. I'm listening to the English dub. He literally said, "You're so cringe." Oh, hello. Look who's stomping around. And then cut to next episode. Yes. Oh. Yeah, no, this episode did not drive me insane at any point, but like again, like I said, it's a strong move, like a strong creative move, I think, to drop the world building, the lore stuff there, in part also because you have this sense that we're coming closer to the conclusion, right? Like we're coming closer to we're gonna fight the dragon, like shit is gonna kick off, like things are gonna get real for real right now. That also means the audience is invested, right? Like it's risky because you kind of risk the audience going, no, come on, cut back to the cool thing, like cut back to the shit that matters, the shit that's actually happening. But putting it there also, like, if the audience is with you this far, then they're invested, right? Like, then they are invested. They're willing to hear out a bunch of lore dump and exposition dumping. They're willing to listen to that. Which, like, okay, cool. It's like, that makes that probably a pretty decent place to put it, because then, like, even though scenes like that have an inherent tendency to be kind of boring, right? Like, nothing ever happens in those scenes. It's all just set up for things that might happen later. You know, that's still, like, that provides you, like, yeah. I liked that as a structural decision to put the world building, the lore dump there. I don't know if it's in the same place in the manga where, like, the original author might have had the same idea, right? But it's a strong place to put it because it also marks, like, the transition of the story from one state to another, right? We're going to fight the Red Dragon, we're going to save Fallon, and then, like, whatever happens during that fight, like, whatever happens after all of this, things are going to be different because we're going to have completed the first major quest, and then the story will move on to its second phase, right? Like the next part of whatever it's got going on, what it wants to tell. So that's also a good place to start building out the world more broadly and saying, okay, like, in the next phase of the story, after the initial dungeon crawl, after the first adventure, the world is also going to get more complicated, right? Like, there's going to be more factors at play than just the personal concerns of the party, which has been driving the story so far. So that's, like, structurally, I feel like a good way to sort of set up for a more expansive world going forward. And it is some interesting world building. Like, it is interesting, this thing of, like, we got introduced to a little bit of it with the orcs and, like, these land disputes that clearly sort of run the world upstairs, that, like elves and dwarves have this, like, that's a very classic fantasy trope, right? Like, elves versus dwarves, they don't like each other because of some reasons. Had a bit of a fight, but, like, this thing of, like, oh, they divided the continent between them. The elves actually bestowed this realm on the humans, and now they have decided to take it back, right? And, like, our scholar guy, something with T, has his theory that, like, they're after the immortality spell. He's sure of this. It's the magic, it's the immortality spell of the dungeon. That's what they're after. So we should go and get to it first. But, like, we don't 100% know that that's the thing that they want, right? Like, who knows what it is in the dungeon of the Mad Mage that the elves might be interested in. But it's clearly, like, an out-of-character thing for them to, like, just suddenly show up and make demands after they're the ones who sort of relinquished the land to the human lord who currently rules over it. And that's, like, oh, intrigue. It's not interesting on the level of the story, right? It's not interesting on the level of the characters who we've actually been following. It doesn't impact them. It doesn't matter to them. Like, they're not there for any of that. But it is the kind of thing that, like, oh, that could be interesting in a second phase, like a second arc of the storytelling of what the characters are trying to do down there, as perhaps like a ticking clock of, like, you have to get this done before the elves come and take over, because otherwise you're never going to get to enter the dungeon again, right? That kind of thing. So that's all interesting, but It's time to fight the Red Dragon. It's time for the climax, the conclusion, like the big blowout between the characters of like seeing whether this new party with their new resolve and their connection and their like mutual solidarity with one another, whether they're ready, whether they're strong enough, whether they can pull this off and save Fallon. And and it would be such a shame if there was some kind of a twist, wouldn't it? Such a shame if there was some kind of a terrifying twist waiting on the other end. Boy, I sure hope that doesn't happen. I sure hope everything just goes off without a hitch and absolutely no problems. Let's find out. Bye.